on direction to the committee now.
Elaine, what do you think?
I don't have any problem with it. I expressed some of my concerns when I met with your committee regarding the square footage, the size of the square footage, that it wouldn't be the middle class that's already squeezed to the limit that would be bearing the burden. So, I mean, as long as that's being addressed, I have no problem with it.
Is that even legal?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Can you even do that? Can you even say, we're going to, the little ones we're not going to bother, but the bigger ones we're going to? And then the little ones put an addition on 2 years later, and they're as big as the big ones. Is that legal?
Well, we're certainly, I don't think John is a lawyer unless you've changed it, whatever
whatever
is drafted will be run by.
A number of them do. A number of workforce housing provisions that include fee schedules do carve out smaller houses as being exempt.
No, what he's saying is you build a house 1,500 feet at a time.
And then you build it on over time.
So you get a
Someone
permit
that's
for the
doing
first
that though is
1,500,
someone's going to a lot of time and effort to avoid paying that fee in that case. I mean, they certainly could, but
How much are we talking about? I mean,
that's something that we're going to come back at. But we had considered $1 a foot at one point, and if we have a 1,500 square foot exemption, then we're talking about just the square footage that would be over that in that construct. So someone would be spending a lot to avoid $500
But is it enough
or
to do
something.
anything with? So then, my concern is, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of money up front. But then we're going to see we need more money, so we're going to crank up the rates, that kind of thing.
Well, the earlier you start, the greater the chance of you collecting money. If you delay another 2 years, that's...
Yeah, I know, but I'm not sure what I'm doing with the money yet either.
Well, Ann, do you want to talk briefly about what other towns and what people can do with money
Sure.
for affordable housing
Sure.
programs?
One of the things is usually if there's money available, you will find a partner. And I know Hudson River Housing has been a really good partner for you, but you can also partner with private developers. And you have a really great committee who I don't see walking away from, okay, now we have the money, let's walk away.
But how much is money? Are we talking $500 or $500,000?
Well, for something, I mean, we talked to Hudson River Housing, and this, I don't know if we're going to pursue it, but we talked to Hudson River Housing about the idea of a down payment program in which people that meet a criteria get some kind of an assistance in making a down payment. That's a $10,000 number. Mm-hmm. So $10,000 could be the number that gets somebody that is struggling to come up with a down payment on a house, the ability to buy that house. So $10,000 matters. So even if we're collecting $500 from somebody that's building a new house, we do that 20 times, we've got somebody's down payment.
Okay, and
But the committee would come back to the town board before any program to spend money for approval.
Often what you need to think about is what your community wants. Do you want ownership? Do you want rental? Do you need a little bit of both? What are you doing, seniors? You're doing younger people? A little bit of both. We often need a lot of that. You sort of start there from the need, and then once you do that, you can work and find a partner for that.
Okay, I think we've beaten the topic to death. I think the committee knows what the board wants to see in a...
some of the board.
relax.
So let me go to another whole topic. Thank you, Jonathan, and everybody who spoke. Mr. McGuire, has the gurus gotten together, and do they have something for us, or should we make you wait longer?
Thank you, John McGuire. John and Dan went to his office to reword the proposal.
Oh, okay, so they'll come back.
And they're on the way back.
Okay, great.
Okay? Thank you.
Are you skipping OSHA training tonight? Yeah, okay.
Poor guy. Sacrifices everything.
The next thing on the agenda is a report from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yay.
Good evening. I'm Mike West, Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is Scott Bergen, also on the board. And actually, we're not here to give a report, we're here to make an appeal to this board. As you may be aware, we're losing our secretary at the end of this month. And right now, we have a lot of very important cases, some of them rather controversial, on our agenda. And it's really important that we have a secretary. I spoke to Elizabeth. She said that she thought that the board would be willing to keep J.D. on part-time. She's actually starting another full-time job working for the county, so we're not sure how much time she's going to have to give us, but at least be at our meetings and take the notes and work up the paperwork, stay in communication with people for us. Until such time as you can hire a new secretary for us. And we're unclear just what exactly the process will be, whether you're going to have a subcommittee that will interview applicants. We would certainly like to be involved in that process if that's the case.
Well, the process is we have run an ad. We've put it on our website. We're starting to get applications. Generally on hiring, it's the whole town board interviews people and makes a selection. I'm not aware of necessarily committee members coming, but I guess I don't see any problem with it. We usually...
Selection process.
Pardon me?
I'm Scott Bergen, I'm
Yeah.
the vice chair. I think it would help your selection process because we could tell the person what they actually have to do.
That's good.
Since Mike's been on, what, 20-some-odd years, I've been on 10, we can tell them what they're up against, how they have to interact, and who they're going to interact with, how many hours they're going to have to put in and that kind of stuff. So I think it can only help in the selection process, but we're as busy as we have been in recent memory with applications, and some of them are substantial, so.
And there's some more cases on the horizon,
Right.
which are also going to be somewhat controversial, and we really need the support.
Having
Well-
continuity for the short term would be good.
One question we had, because we have been discussing it among board members, till we get somebody, could you go to one meeting a month for, a month or so till we hire somebody?
I don't think we can, given how many applications we have. Plus, we have, once we close a public hearing, we have to make a determination within 60 days or so. Sometimes we're handcuffed because of the time constraints. But literally, we must have, 8 or 10 applications? And some of them are substantial. It's not the, lot line variance kind of stuff. That's easy. We have some use variances, very
We have
unusual.
2 use variances. We have 2 cases that are in the historic district, and we're having to continue public hearings about those, and it would be a hardship.
When is your next meeting scheduled?
April 2nd. Now, Elizabeth had mentioned that it might be possible to keep J.D. on as an hourly wage worker for the amount of time we need her, if she can be at our meetings and possibly do up the paperwork. So that buys us a little time before we have to have a full-time replacement. But I also have some thoughts about how the replacement should be utilized. We think that maybe one secretary that services both our board and the planning board might be a good idea so that there's better communication. We no longer have Gina, our liaison to this board.
I'm ready to speak. Just give me a second.
And anything that can make the communication better, having one common secretary who does both boards might be a really good idea.
Might be.
Gina Fox. I love that idea, Mike. I've always been a proponent of better communication between zoning and planning, and I urge this board to do whatever you can to assist them. They're backlogged, they are swamped, they've had to miss a couple of meetings because they were missing a quorum, and they're doing everything they can do to provide for the public. So I'm in support of getting J.D. or someone per diem until you get someone full-time. So, and I don't think they should go to one meeting a month. That's just my opinion.
No, I suggested the one meeting just for a month or so, not a permanent thing.
Thanks, you guys.
The town board is aware of the issue, and we're trying to resolve it. And, let me thank you. I know we have an excellent zoning board of appeals. You work very hard, and we will try to facilitate a reasonable way to proceed. So let me leave that in Elizabeth's hands.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
hearing us.
coming.
Thank you.
Mr. McGuire, there's still, so we'll go to some resolutions when they come. Just wave, and I'll interrupt what we're doing. Moving on to the resolutions we have. We have Resolution 201-4099, approving preliminary accounts payable abstract, 47 checks totaling $164,646.18. And let me say to the public who's not aware of the process, each town board member looks over each accounts payable, checks it, and signs off on it. That is the process, so we have been over it. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Okay.
Would anybody like to second the
Second.
okay?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of?
Aye.
Turning to the second resolution, it's a preliminary capital abstract, projects abstract for $208.50. Any discussion? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Motion.
Alan so moves.
Oh, a second, then.
Okay, a surprise.
Touche.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any negatives? We also have Resolution 201-4104 for budget transfers and amendments. That was circulated. I think it's in the book. Would somebody like to make a motion on that?
Motion.
Would somebody like to second that?
Okay.
Second. Sure that's not 04, is it 01?
4101.
Yeah, okay.
If is there any discussion? Can we vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. The second item, or the next item on the agenda, is a motion to approve the union contract for the highway and maintenance departments. And the contract has been subject of negotiation from December 2012, when the old contract ran out, until February 2013. So we've been discussing it with representatives of the union and with the shop steward for over a year. What we have before this town board for ratification is a 4-year contract, and the contract's terms have been ratified by the union. So the contract will take effect if this board decides to ratify it. On behalf of the town board, Bruce and I have been part of the negotiating team together with a labor consultant. The union was represented by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. They supplied 2 people to help the negotiations, and the shop steward and assistant shop steward were part of those negotiations. Let me just go through the highlights of the 4-year contract and the major changes that were made from the previous contract, which the union has been operating under till a new contract is entered into. All union members henceforth will pay something toward their medical plan. Currently, the town provides 100% of medical benefits. And the only members of the union who paid something toward that was those hired after 9/1/2004, and they paid 10% of the premium. Now, the town pays on top of the premium, and really before the insurer has to pay out money, we in effect self-insure up to about $5,000. And then the plan in effect kicks in after we pay the first $5,000. So for persons hired before 9/1/04 who now pay nothing, there's a graduated schedule that in 2014 they'll pay 1.5% of the premium. In 2015 they'll pay 3% of the premium, and in 2016 it would go up to 5% of the premium. Those who now pay 10% of the premium will continue to pay 10%, and new employees would pay 12.5% of the premium. With respect to wages, there is somewhat of a departure from past custom where there would be a percentage increase. And this time it's not a percentage increase, but it's a certain number of cents per dollar. Per hour. So for 2013, and we're going retroactively back because the union members were working without any pay increase under the old contract, there would be a 25-cent per hour increase. For 2014, it would be a 50 cents an hour pay increase. That's for 2014. For 2015, there would be a 55-cent pay increase per hour. And for 2016, it would be a 55-cent per hour increase. What this does is that the people who get the most per hour, their percentage increase as a percentage is less than the people who get a lower per hour amount. And as I say, it's a 4-year contract. Both Bruce and I, as the negotiating group, recommend that the board adopt it, and we can still vote in favor of it. Are there any questions from the board before I open it to the public, if there's any questions? Does anybody have any comments before we vote on ratification of the contract. Now, I must say, there is one open issue of interpretation of a specific provision which relates to out-of-class pay, and there is a difference between the negotiating groups as to the meaning of it, and that will be decided by a mediator, arbitrator, so to speak, as to the meaning of that provision. So would somebody like to make a motion, which is in our book here, to ratify the union contract?
Motion?
Second.
What are the ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm too tired from all these years of negotiating this thing.
Okay. Hearing no nays, the contract is ratified. Are we ready, John, to talk about, and this is item number 6. And I don't know, does it make sense to take it in pieces so we can vote on it, or should we vote on the whole thing? How do you want to do it?
Well, the way that I'll wait till I get to the mic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They got 2 paper clips on.
Oh,
Well, you guys do good work. Thank you. Perfect. Look at that.
looks good. John?
So the way that I have the resolution written, it does everything, okay? So the sequence of action items at the end of the resolution just goes through the things that need to be done. So in accordance with our discussions earlier, Dan and I went back and we made a change to the written description of the district in both the resolution and also in the proposed law. We also made the change to the map, which you have in front of you, so I think it should be in good shape.
Yeah.
So let me call for, well, let's see, is there anybody who wants to say anything?
Doesn't look like it.
Don't we want a colored map?
So let me call for a vote on adoption of the resolution that
We had a motion, yes, or didn't we?
did we have a motion already? No.
So I move that we accept.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Need what?
Roll call vote.
Roll call.
We'd like a roll call vote. Elaine?
All-
Aye.
Bruce? Myself, aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All
And,
set?
okay, and you two will implement it. Mr. McGuire, I hope you will join us for other sessions. The town board meeting would not be the same without seeing you, so thank you for your patience on this while this was being hammered out. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is number 5. And this is to release from the workforce housing program certain units that were part of the workforce housing program. The reason for this is under the agreement with the developer of the gardens, that the developer has the right to withdraw units from the workforce housing program if they are not sold within 180 days of notice of sheetrocking. And there were 2 units that, well, 1 unit was sold. There were 4 units in Phase 2A. One unit has already been sold. A second unit has been spoken for, and although the 180 days have gone by, the developer will allow that unit to be sold under the workforce housing program, provided we throw in the reclaimer, so to speak, one of the units in Phase 2C, which have not been sheetrocked. So that's why we have 3 units. Are there any questions from the board? Public, any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll try to take a load off your boots.
Okay. I think, John, we've done number 6 already.
Yes.
Number 7 is a resolution allowing the town hall use for Sinterklaas.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next resolution is to allow the use of the town hall for a repair cafe.
Motion.
Second. I just have a question. Who's going to manage the repair cafe?
Joel, wherever Joel is.
Oh, there he is.
Can I say a few words?
No, Joel, we're not there yet at the end. Or are you talking about the repair?
This is my phone.
Oh, okay.
Talking about the repair cafe.
So, yeah, Joel Tyner. And there are 400 of these all over the world. I just got off the phone with the guy, I think his name is John Hackman, who's been doing it for about a year, almost a year in New Paltz. They're wildly successful. It's a community building enterprise. Basically, people bring their old lamps, vacuum cleaners, alarm clocks, radios, toys, espresso machines, toaster ovens, computers, and other people come and fix them. And there was a big article in the Daily Freeman at the end of January about this. And the way they work it in New Paltz, they have different workstations, clothing and textiles, dolls and stuffed animals, woodwork, simple jewelry repair. I sent an email yesterday to the board. I know, Bruce, you were saying maybe it might be more appropriate to do something like this out at the building at the transfer station, which is fine with me. It's whatever you guys think might possibly be more appropriate. Originally, I was shooting for Saturday, April 26th. Typically, when they do it in New Paltz, they do it for 4 or 5 hours. So, but then there's a big thing happening at Clinton on the 26th of April. So I was going to try to, I think I was telling John, the town clerk, going to shoot for some Saturday in May for 4 hours from noon to 4, if it was okay with you. And the guy that I just spoke with, the international website is repaircafe.org. It started in Netherlands 5 years ago. The guy who's been doing it in New Paltz, I asked him, well, what about local fix-it people? Are they threatened by this? You know, might take their business? And he said that every single local fix-it person that he's spoken with loved the idea because it was sort of their opportunity to sort of put themselves forward and actually get some face time with the community and help promote themselves and their abilities. So, I don't know, to me it's kind of a win-win. And I'm hoping that you guys might allow us to allow it to happen once. Jess Scott from the Conservation Advisory Board for the town has already said she wants to work with me to make it happen if you guys are into it. I sent an email to everybody I know in Rhinebeck yesterday. There's a woman named Betsy Zubroff. Not even sure if I've met that person, but she's emailed me back. She wants to work with me to help make it happen if you guys could let us try it once.
And all we would have to do is provide the space.
Yes, sir.
And you would make an announcement that the town is not liable for any of the repairs being made, that these are
I am announcing this at this moment, that the town of Rhinebeck is not, and I will announce it, yes, liable, yes.
And no money changes hands, yes?
That is correct.
If they need parts, they can go see the person outside.
Yep. And it says that The way they worked it in New Paltz, they looked for volunteers, carpenters, volunteer seamstresses, volunteers who might be able to help with jewelry repair, electrical computer stuff. Now, I will frankly acknowledge and share with you that what if we start one of these and then 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 people show up with their broken stuff and there's nobody here to fix it? I don't know. But there are already people who have indicated to me that they're willing to work with me on this, so it's not just one guy trying to reach out to expert fix-it people. And I'm hoping, since today is the 24th of March and we're shooting for some Saturday in May, that's enough time to reach out to people. So it's not just going to be people coming here with stuff to be fixed. There'll also be some experts here willing to fix.
Does it make sense to have Joel come back with how many people he's lined up to actually fix things, so we don't have just one person here? I don't know, what are other people?
I don't, I'll tell you why I'm shaking my head, because if we give him a date, then he can work towards it to get it here and get the publicity. If we're just trying it, if we're going to make him come back and before we say yes.
I agree with you.
It's defeating.
Let's not
the purpose of it.
micromanage Joel.
Elaine, do you have?
I agree with them.
Okay. So are we agreeable to allow the town hall to be used?
You want to do it by roll call?
I was going to say as a fix-it shop, but are all in favor of allowing this use?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
I love you all dearly. Thank you.
Okay.
We love you too, Joel. Thanks for doing
That was uncalled for, Joe. That was uncalled for.
The next item on the agenda is Matt Rosenberg.
Joel, I'm sorry, Joe, can I just,
Yes.
can we go back, because we never did liaison reports on the first page?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right, but there is actually something that I'd like to discuss with the board.
Yep.
As you all know, I'm liaison to the Animal Control Committee, and I received a phone call from Roger Newkirk, the Animal Control Officer, the Enforcement Officer, and he invited me to come look at the kennel, which he said has been, he's been having a lot of problems with for a long time, and it's serious.
Kathy, can you, we're talking about the kennel. The kennel, the dog kennel.
Roger Newkirk had called me recently and asked me if I would come down there and take a look at the kennel. He said it's been in disrepair for quite some time, and he said that there are two problems. One is that because the parking lot has been repaved regularly, it's put the kennel lower and lower, so that a lot of water collects down there to the point where he's had to build some pallets to keep the dogs up out of water. I did take some photos, which I sent to the board, which showed some of the water stains, and it showed some of the damages that he was referring to. I asked him, in fact, I'll read you what the conversation that we had. He said the problem exists because over the years the parking lot has been paved and repaved. The kennel sits on a cement slab and the parking lot is much higher than the kennel. Years ago they were the same level, but the parking lot has been raised by resurfacing the parking lot several times over the years, and now water runoff goes directly into the kennel. And he said he's had to build pallets, quote, so the animals aren't underwater. I asked if he had any recommendations, and he said that the town should consider either inserting drains in front of the building toward the highway department, or dig a trench and lay pipes and gravels to collect the runoff. That's problem number one. Problem number two is that there are 3 cage runs out back, and the wire grates on the 3 cages have rusted over the years. In fact, one of the photos that I sent to you showed you where one bar actually rusted in half, so that it's created an opening that the small dogs can actually escape through. And he said the problem is that the wire grates on the 3 cages out back have rusted over the years. Some grates have rusted off completely, which is the photo that I just referred to, so that small dogs can escape. I asked him again if he had any recommendations for this, and he said that the cages are all right, but that the wires need to be reinforced, that the stalls themselves need to be stabilized. So that was the conversation I had with Mr. Newkirk, and I told him I would bring this to the board tonight and contact him back and let him know what discussion we had about this. And I thought it was important for you guys to see the photos. I'll send them to you too, since you weren't on the email where I sent the photos, so you can see the damage that he's referring to and the problems.
Before Kathy speaks, I think we probably need some kind of recommendation from our maintenance supervisor and from Kathy for the highway, because it's located down there. So maybe at the next meeting, we can have a recommendation from both of those sources. But Kathy, if you want to say something tonight preliminarily.
Sure, thank you. Yes, I thank you for pointing that out, because the dog wardens' facilities are a separate entity. They're located on the Highway Department grounds, the area, but it's not run by or maintained by the town highway department. I do think that you do want to absolutely reach out to Bob Fitzpatrick, your building and facilities maintenance person, regarding the repairs to the actual caging. It sounds like that should be something that he would be the best to give you a proposal on, and probably wouldn't be that difficult.
Okay.
Regarding the drainage to the area, I'm very well aware of the problem there. In fact, when we had Hurricane Irene, the waters were rising so fast from the kill that runs through there that I was actually concerned and I thank you, Bruce. I don't forget that you were there and helped out with that, as did Gina Fox. Take a dog out of the facility because it was actually in danger of probably having drowned if that had continued. So it is set low for the catastrophic events that we've been getting. Regarding ongoing paving there, that's just that has not a part of it. That's not a contributing factor. I don't know the last time that the parking lot was repaved. It certainly needs it. The only area that's gotten any shim is the area which is far enough away from that, over right by the entry to the storage bays under the salt shed eaves. That hasn't been paved, and there hasn't been paving there in at least 9 years. That doesn't mean that the area is not low. It absolutely is low, and there absolutely should be something to address it. Again, I think what you may want to do is you did talk about either really putting in drainage there, but it's stormwater drain. You're going to have to find a way of funding that if that's what you want, and somewhere to put that. There is the kill, but you're putting stormwater in, but we could probably do sand filtration or something like that. But again, there's dollar costs associated, which is the purview of the board. So if you want these proposals, I'd be more than happy to help bring some proposals forward. But you need to be aware that this is a fix that you're going to have to fund. It's not because it happens to share the space. It's not a highway issue. It's not a road issue. The other option that you may want to consider, rather than working the land around it, is raising the building, or a third option, relocating the building. So you have a number of things to think about, and again, help you in any way that I can think these things through, but it is something that's going to have to come from what you want to do and how you want to get these proposals.
And I'll reach out to Bobby, as you suggested, and get.
Well, let Bruce talk to him, because you're the liaison to Bobby, and
Okay.
ask him to take a look at it, Bruce. We have talked about relocation in the past, and I think board members felt that was not a good idea.
Well, it seems like some of the things that Mr. Newkirk suggested, probably wouldn't be a lot of money, or, I don't know. But I mean, so you want me to reach out to Bobby? Because I'm happy to do it. Okay, so I'll reach out to Bobby and let him know what Mr. Newkirk recommended and ask him his opinion.
Okay, and I think you should tell him that Bobby should, if we're talking about drainage, maybe to talk to Kathy.
Then do include me there, definitely.
Okay, no problem.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Which is the only last point that I want to make. I think it really would be a great thing for, Joe's been down there, Bruce has been down there, Elizabeth's been down there, but the newer board members, Elaine and Alan, I don't think have been on site to see the dog facility nor the highway department. So I think I would like to suggest, and again extend an invitation to you guys to come down and let me give you a tour around there. We are the biggest drain, if you want to look at it that way, no pun intended, on the budget. So I think it would really be a good thing to come down and take a look around there. And I would be more than happy to host you and give you a very entertaining tour.
No doubt. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rosenberg, I think you're next on our agenda.
Mr. Rosenberg last?
I think he's
But not
last.
least.
No, I think
He'd be very happy.
Well, wait a minute, I don't know if Joel has anything or not.
No, Joel's done.
No, I think he's done. This is also especially for the benefit of Elaine and Alan, who was not present at the November 12th meeting where we discussed Victor Cornelius's proposal. I know you heard and Bruce heard, but just to benefit of them, proposal for asking for a grant from the state for a sewage and wastewater system for Rhinecliff. And so I wanted to thank the board for the opportunity to follow up on the last discussion we had. This will take about 10 minutes, I hate to say. So I'm going to try and speed it up. So since that meeting that Victor Cornelius gave this presentation, I've had a chance to thoroughly research the history of Rhinecliff's sewage issues and compiled a sort of short synopsis with a chronology of everything going back to 1975. So in 1975, the health department conducted dye tests and found that 15 of the 40 dwellings failed in Rhinecliff. These were concentrated around Schatzel, Charles, and Kelly Street.
What year was this?
1975.
75.
And I will email you everything I'm saying so that you'll also have a record of it. In 1978, Rhinecliff was included in a sewage study by Brenner and Larry's for possible inclusion in the town's master plan, but it was determined to be too costly. By 1980, an addendum study was done that focused on just serving 80 houses in Rhinecliff through a gravity collection system. In 1981, that solution was rejected as too costly by the New York State Department of Audit and Control. In other words, the state found that 80 houses was just too few for such an expensive project. In 1982, we found a September DEC memo which said essentially, and I quote from the memo from the DEC, "Not feasible to place Rhinecliff on a priority list, solutions not implementable, and effects on Hudson are minimal." Again, that was in September of 1982. In November of 1982, the DEC memo said that, quote, "The volume of sewage is insignificant." Moving to 1987, Amtrak also installed a 1,300 gallon per day waste treatment plant that operates to this day, which also alleviated some of the problems of raw sewage going in. Now, in the late 80s, there was a lot of push for sewage in Rhinecliff because there was a desire by the Creed property to develop 400 houses on that property. Some of you may be aware of this. Some of you, it was a long time ago, spoken to a lot of people involved in fighting against that. And essentially, Creed was, again, density bonus. They were asking for density bonuses for allowing Rhinecliff to use some of the sewage plant that they were going to build. So the health department was sort of encouraging this at the time. So in 1988, the health department went with the Rhinebeck town engineer to discuss a new sewer district that would include Creed, Weingarten, which is now known as the Gardens, and the town was, at the time, hesitant to include Rhinecliff. And as we know, the Gardens, right after that, joined, after a few years, onto the Astor processor. So they're being processed by the main plant for the village. And thankfully, the Creed property never got built. So it left Rhinecliff, again, isolated with no master plant to join onto to make some sort of cost-effective plant. So in 1990, the town got some funding to make a comprehensive engineering study to do a sewage plant in Rhinecliff. This was also during the same time that Creed was actively pursuing building the 400 houses. It hasn't stopped by 1990. So the complete engineering study of viability cost, placement of a waste treatment plant for Rhinecliff was conducted by D.F. Wheeler Engineering in Red Hook, who's still there. This was done based in part on the notion that Creed development would move forward, but did not actually include the Creed additions in its assessments. In other words, it assumed that the treatment plant would be placed on Creed property for what was to be a density bonus, but for the purposes of the report, it didn't include any of Creed's actual buildings in the treatment plant. So this was an estimate based on just treating Rhinecliff. Okay, so moving forward a little to 1991, the health department cited Patty's Tavern, if anyone remembers that. It's now where the post office is in Rhinecliff. They were cited for dye test failure. as was, anyone remembers Ed DeBias, who ran the hotel at the time. The hotel had no septic system in 1991. It essentially went directly into the Hudson River. So this was one of the biggest concerns because it was one of the biggest public places outside of the train station. So there was a wastewater committee formed in Rhinecliff. In 1991, the Rhinecliff Wastewater Committee conducted the first hamlet-wide dye test survey since the previous one of 1975. They tested and surveyed 82 houses that participated. 15 were determined to have problems, and that would be 18% of the 80 houses. 13 of these...
Excuse me, when you say dye test, you're looking at the dye coming into the drinking water from the sewage?
Not drinking water, because all the drinking water is supplied by the drinking water supply is different. It's just the dye would have been put down the toilets, and then it would be seen in the storm drains where it shouldn't be.
Okay.
So that would be it. Because almost nobody in Rhinecliff has drinking water except from the village drinking water supply. It's not a well issue.
So they would look for the dye after a rain to see?
No, they would flush very concentrated dye. This is done today when people buy a house in Rhinecliff or anyone who has a septic system. You flush large packages of extremely colored dye, and you will see if the septic is failure, it's either bubbling up, or in the case like this, they were looking for storm drain runoff. So
Okay, outside the house, whether
Right.
it would bubble up on the lawn or when it's
directly into
going
the storm
a
drains
sewer.
that are next to the
It's
house.
supposed to go.
So if you suddenly see a
septic field.
deep red dye in the storm drain, you'd be like, okay, this is clearly not supposed to be here. Again, that was back in the 1990s. So in the early 90s, after the Creed development was rejected, many of the homes that failed, 13 of the homes that failed the survey by the Rhinecliff Water Committee were actually already cited by the health department. So in the early 1990s, there was a grant program that wasn't a block grant, but individuals could apply. And almost all of those houses, to our knowledge, applied. In fact, the house I live in now actually applied to previous owner, and they got money, and new engineered septic systems were put in to fix the failed systems that the health department had noted. Moving forward to 2004, the Rhinecliff Hotel was approved for a 7,280 gallon per day waste treatment plant that functions to this day. It's totally certified by the health department. And that was one of the major concerns back in the 90s, was the hotel was generating a lot of septic. So additionally, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen houses on Grinnell, Kelly, and various other streets completely replace their septic systems with DEC-approved systems. Obviously, in order to get them put in, they're all approved. So many of the houses that might not have even been problems then have already had septic systems replaced. So I want to just go back to that's pretty much the chronology. But going back to the 1990 Wheeler Engineering Report, which was prepared for the town on central sewage collection in Rhinecliff, makes a number of really, I think, very important points in consideration of any kind of sewage treatment plant grant. So they noted a number of serious construction problems in Rhinecliff. One, shallow depth to bedrock in many locations. 2, generally narrow streets with high potential for utility conflict, specifically all of the water mains that come into all the houses would be conflicting with any sewage system that could be put in. And another one which would concern anyone with houses that are on Kelly Street or any street that's close to where they would be drilling, the close proximity of building foundations, which because of the shallow bedrock could easily be damaged in digging these large trenches for any kind of gravity sewage system. In addition, the report states, you have to remember, the report was really geared towards the idea that the only way you could have a sewage system in Rhinecliff was to combine it with something like Creed, possibly the gardens, something to make it more relevant. But by itself, the report says, and I quote, "It would not be prudent for the town to pursue construction of their own central sewage plant to serve Rhinecliff. There is an absence of suitable land in Rhinecliff. The only town-owned land is currently used," when I say currently, this was in 1990, "for recreational purposes. In addition, the parcel of land would require pumping of the discharge to the Hudson River, the streams in the hamlet would require more advanced waste treatment and would escalate sewage treatment plant costs out of the affordability range. What they're talking about there is under the Clean Water Act, the only way to do any sewage treatment is to directly go into the Hudson, because then you can do secondary cleaning as opposed to tertiary cleaning, which is absolutely too expensive. So it can be less clean when you dump into a larger body of water. It has to be much more clean if you're dumping into a stream or a smaller body of water. And I quote further from the report, the preparers do not see any other viable sites in close proximity to the hamlet of Rhinecliff which could serve as a site for sewage treatment plant. So it's clear from the report that the only way the town could build a sewage treatment plant for Rhinecliff would be to purchase private land on the Hudson that would also be far enough away from the public water supply for the village. At the time, that was the only place they could consider was the Creed property. Because the plant also can't be too close to the water intake, because it is, although a treatment plant, producing sewage. It's a smaller quantity, but it's concentrating it, and it's a small amount, so it has to be under federal laws a certain distance from any anywhere where you're getting your drinking water from, obviously. So, Mr. Gelb, actually, you asked at that meeting of November 12th, what would the cost to operate a sewage plant be? And no one even guessed, actually. It was just like, let's just ask for the money to build it. We don't know how much it'll cost to operate. Well, the Wheeler study actually specifically addressed operations and maintenance costs on page 17 and 18, and I will email you the whole Wheeler engineering report, although I know it's in possession of the town. So I'm going to quote you from the $1990, and then I'll translate them into 2014 dollars. They came up, as any good engineering report, with 3 different options. So option 1 was a gravity system that would have an O&M cost of $135,000 in just the first year. Option 2 was a low-pressure force main that would have an O&M cost of $139,440. And option 3 was a septic tank effluent system that would O&M cost at $154,240. $135,000, excuse me. So if we use a standard U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index inflation calculator, which you can find online, you can take the least expensive O&M option from the Wheeler study at $135,000 annually, $1990, convert them to 2014 dollars. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it would be $242,505 in 2 days.
What, 40?
$242,505.24.
$250,000.
$250,000. So if we take $250,000 operating and maintenance costs and divide that by 150 houses, which is the total makeup of Rhinecliff, and I should say that the health department never conceived of all 150 houses actually getting a sewage system. They actually stated in their 1989 report that they only conceived of 80. But for the purposes of dividing this number, we'll start with 150 houses. That would be a tax burden on everyone in Rhinecliff of $1,616.70 per year, operation and maintenance, based on the engineering report that the town already commissioned for a Rhinecliff sewer system. Now, if you did only 80 houses, because actually 150 probably could never be done anyway, because many of them are in places this system could never reach, that would be a tax burden of $3,031.22 per resident homeowner of Rhinecliff. So finally, I just want to quickly address the stormwater issue. Given the fact that the town previously commissioned an engineering report in 1990 that determined there is, and I quote, shallow depth to bedrock in many locations and close proximity to building foundations, it would seem that any large-scale excavation needed to install a new stormwater system would almost certainly damage numerous building foundations. In addition, the fracturing of bedrock would certainly lead to changes in water flow, which could in turn lead to flooding basements that previously had no infiltration problems. Additionally, there are a number of houses with things like B-dry systems in Rhinecliff where they now directly pump their just regular water that floods their basements into the stormwater drains. Otherwise, they would flood the streets. This happens, whether it's totally legit or not, I can't say, but it definitely happens. If you put a new storm drain in, all of those are going to have to be disconnected, and I assure you they're going to have all that water tested before they ever can be reconnected. And all you have to have is enough organic matter, a slightly high coliform count those people are not going to be able to rejoin a new stormwater drain, and then they have no place to pump their basement water except out onto the street. So in short, I just don't think it would be a good idea to pursue any kind of major sewer or stormwater system for Rhinecliff because it's like a Pandora's box. There's numerous problems that this could create, including an enormous tax burden. If this was something that was actually a problem, that recent health department problems were coming up, then maybe it's something to consider. But the last time we have any health department activity here is in the 1990s, and since then, we have thousands of gallons of DEC septic systems functioning now for the hotel, Amtrak. We have new owners who have put in new septic systems, and we have an approach which is perfectly viable. Lastly, for those who question the viability of the current system, I want to just leave you with a statement from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, and I quote them saying, "Nearly 1 in 4 households in the United States depends on an individual septic system, also referred to as an on-site system." And I quote from the EPA, "Adequately managed decentralized wastewater systems are a cost-effective, long-term option for meeting public health and water quality goals, particularly in less densely populated areas," unquote.
Less densely.
Well, Rhinecliff
Is very dense.
There is a section on Kelly Street which is dense, and there's other sections right around, but when you're talking about a total density of approximately 80 houses, the cost of doing that is very difficult. But I will take it that there's some density there.
Well, I think when they say less dense, they mean 5, 10-acre parcels,
Absolutely.
that kind of thing, rather than 5 or 50 of them
There's
in an
definitely
acre.
approximately 60% of Rhinecliff is in a density of less than an acre.
What, Wheeler did the Vanderburg Cove thing too. And the numbers are, the difference is huge. Because Vanderburg Cove now is $1,200 a year, and $400 of that is loans.
Right. I think part of the problem is the construction of the gravity system and where they have to put it in relation to the Hudson is more complicated, and the roads and the topography of it. In the report, they talk a lot about the topography of Rhinecliff being difficult.
So you're counting that as O&M?
No, I'm just guessing that there may be more maintenance involved in the more motor pumps and potentially, they did the report, I didn't make up the number.
Okay, so, but gravity, no, I'm just trying to understand because the difference, because it was like $778, I think, is the insane amount that anybody should pay for septic for a year.
Yep.
And anything over that, you shouldn't even bother doing it, that kind of thing.
Well, before you even get to the O&M numbers, which I agree seem a little higher than Vanderburg Cove.
I'm just trying to understand.
Oh, yeah, no, I couldn't say because I'm not an engineer. I'm just reading them, the numbers, and I'll email you the report by the end of this meeting. But some of the bigger points they made is that there simply is no place to put a sewage system in Rhinecliff.
Well, now that Alan's on the board, we could put it on his property.
Two reactions.
Why don't you take it by eminent domain?
I
won't fight it.
Two reactions. You obviously did a lot of research, and I hope you can submit this in writing to us some kind of...
Today.
So it doesn't get lost.
Be emailed by the end of this evening.
Pardon me?
By the end of the evening, I'll email you everything.
Oh, okay, fine. Second thing, I guess what one has to wrestle with is if there are grants available and the engineers tell us it's feasible, would that be a better solution than not doing anything and hoping that there'll never be a problem from health officials and other officials? Because if we, and we, I mean, if a sewer district in Rhinecliff had to fund the construction of sewers, that would dwarf any of these numbers that you gave us.
Well, that's what those numbers
Well,
were.
no, the numbers I gave you were O&M without the actual cost of capital.
Right, and I'm saying if we had to pay, or the residents had
Right.
to pay the cost of capital.
There's a lot of, I think the thing that one has to keep in mind is that there's nobody in the DEC that finds the amount of pollution generated by, let's say, potentially 10 houses that have failures, or 15 houses. The Hudson is a very large flow of water. So the amount of pollution that creates, although not desirable, is so small that sort of, if you figure that a rolling number of septic systems are always failing over the course of a year, one here or one there, and then that gets fixed and that gets fixed. But if it adds up to 10 or something on any given basis, it seems like the way to address that is individually, at the time. It doesn't, there's nothing in the DEC going back when this was much worse, when the hotel had no septic system, they wrote that this was an insignificant amount of flow into the Hudson. So it seems like you could spend a lot of money with a solution to a problem that doesn't actually exist, creating a sewage district for a very small area. Now, had this in 1982 been incorporated into the gardens, and if Creed had been built and it was part of a large system, I think it would be much more justifiable because it's doing a lot. But for such a small community, it could create a large burden and a lot of problems that don't exist now.
It's clear.
Sounds good to me.
So
Bruce, in Vandenberg Cove, I assume that there was some government officials that stirred things up to cause.
Wait. First, we own Vandenberg Cove. We own both systems. We own the collection system and everything else. It was coming out, it was discharging onto the surface. We were looking at $37,500 a day in penalties unless we fixed it, because it was coming up onto the surface, concentrated, and going into a narrow stream down into the bay areas.
Right. The cove.
Yeah, the cove, and wiping those out or doing something with those before it even got into the deep water.
Yep.
Where Rhinecliffe's on the deep water,
Exactly.
and we don't own it.
Right. I would say that if, well, A, you don't own it, so the liability for the town is non-existent now. And B, if there is leakage and it goes into a storm drain, it does go into the Hudson as opposed to a small stream, which is clearly more capable of handling, some sort of effluent compared to a stream. And I would just point out that the river keepers and every other organization that we've contacted, they don't even know what we're talking about when we mention Rhinecliff. They're just like, we have Kingston to worry about. We have major sources of pollution. You got to be joking with Rhinecliff. I mean, I would also point out that if you look at a tax map from 1900 and you look at one from today, it hasn't dramatically changed in the number of structures. There isn't some 400 units that have been built. It's 150. They don't even deliver mail in Rhinecliff because they don't figure the density is enough.
I think somebody else wanted to speak.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Shepard.
I'm sorry, Andrew?
Andrew Shepard, also from Rhinecliff. The laws of unintended consequences are really big here, and right now the town doesn't have any liability. There are ongoing repairs. I see them all the time. One of my neighbors just had their system repaired. They're really, this is a solution looking for a problem, and the problem is that if you get a grant that says we have this big pool of money, believe me, someone will figure out how to design you a system. Someone will figure out how to dig you the ditches. Someone will figure out how to pay all the legal fees that are going to be involved. But at the end of the day, it's the Rhinecliff that's going to be stuck with a bill, and we can't guess what that would be. But you can go into a situation where you tell a homeowner, you can't live here unless you fix your system. You can buy a system that goes in your basement that you can put your waste into and drink out of it, the other end of it. It's expensive, but it's the homeowner's liability, it's not the town's. The solution to this isn't a grand digging up of the hamlet. It's just fixing what needs to be fixed as we go along. And my big fear is that, everyone goes, Sandy money, oh, it's great Sandy money, which I think is, unfortunate that's the way our government operates, that, everyone has to run to get this money. There's not a problem. Nobody's calling you from the DEC, nobody's calling you from the health department. If I have a problem at my house, they'll call me.
I don't think this started out as sewage. I think it started out as stormwater and then somehow got into the sewage thing.
It started out sort of as both. Even if you pursue it in that manner, if you go in and you dig through this shallow bedrock, you're going to disturb foundations, you are going to disturb the myriad of underground water passages in Rhinecliff. Anyone who's familiar with it knows that when your neighbor does something to his yard, all of a sudden there's a stream running through your basement. And it's, nobody can say where that water is coming from. Some of it's natural water, some of it's undoubtedly slightly contaminated from animals out there dying on the ground, whatever. It's an extremely complicated situation. Our water goes out a couple of times a year now because the pipes from the village water supply are so old and fragile that it's like, oh, well, turn on the faucet, it's out again. Can you imagine if you started digging through that? And like Matt said, if you go down Kelly Street, you've got all these people who have been living there all their lives, and they've got a B-dry system or whatever that's getting rid of the water that's accumulating in their basement. It's not necessarily coming from their septic. It's coming because it's moving all around. If you put in a new pipe and say, well, we can't connect you to this pipe unless you've been tested, what are they to do? Let their basement fill up with water and have it run down the street and have their house uninhabitable? The unintended consequences are really huge. And things can get away from you really quickly when there's money on the table. So the reason we have all this documentation is because this keeps coming round and round and round in Rhinecliff. And every time the community gets up and says, no, this is not the right solution for us. And so I urge you really to take that to heart and, think about Vandenberg Cove. I mean, what do those filters cost? $1 million?
Yeah, we spent a lot of money down there.
Yeah, and all the legal and all the time, we're kind of a throwback to another time, and I think I would commend Kathy Kinsella for her work. Every time we have a major event and there's a problem, she comes down and she looks around and says, we can offer you this solution, we can try this and see what happens. We haven't had a major storm to assess the most recent repairs, but from talking to people, it seems to be working quite well. So I think that kind of approach where you're just assessing the needs as they come along is way less dangerous. And honestly, you just had a whole conversation about affordable housing and workforce housing. Rhinecliff actually offers some affordability. There are a bunch of old timers still in Rhinecliff. You're going to bounce them with a $2,000 increase in the cost of living there every year? It doesn't make any sense. Then I have a neighbor 2 houses away that has a well because it would be too expensive to go through the big rock on Vandenberg Road to get to the water supply. So they actually have a well right below their septic system, which isn't great either, but it just shows you what those costs are going to be when you have to start mandating, and then you're going to put people in the district who cannot hook up to the system for one reason or another. The costs are going to be completely variable. You're going to have a lot of these rich people out in the R5 who are going to say, why are you putting me in this district? Talk to my lawyer. It's a mess. Don't open it. Your meetings will be a lot shorter if you just avoid this. Except Joel will always make them a little longer for you.
That's right.
I'd like to thank Joel for fixing my problem with my recycling bin. It keeps me running out, but you'll fix
Go ahead.
Kathy, you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add, and Bruce kindly said he's going to wait to hear this, some information on this issue. It's a very, very complicated issue. And it's one of those situations where everybody's right. It really is true, because you have, this did start, Bruce is right, this started because of stormwater issues. Unfortunately, because when you're looking at trying to address some of the stormwater issues, the waste issues do come into play into the conversation. It's unavoidable at times, because in some cases, and we've done our own very not professional tests, they're called odor tests, but we have done some, we've seen down there that there are some issues of some places where there is waste coming into the stormwater system. The problem is that, this is a huge burden. I mean, to get into something like that, I think everybody understands that. But it did come from a place of people complaining about actual stormwater issues and drainage issues that do exist. And you're right, thank you very much. We've done a lot of work down there. It's always been piecemeal work that we've done. Whenever we've done it, we've seen results, immediate results in the area that we've worked on, and that's great. But we're sort of at the point, this did start again, I'm sort of the one that started the whole thing, because we're the ones who came and said to the board, we are as far as we've gone on the Band-Aid patching workaround system. If you really want to address drainage issues that the board was hearing about from the public down there, and nobody wants to pit neighbors against neighbors, but there are two very legitimate points of view here. One is fix the drainage and the problem that's coming over my land, and the other is, hey, because there are these issues, let's not burden everybody into this big, huge, capital program thing. So unfortunately, the burden for discussing and deciphering that falls to the board. But there are two very divergent needs down there. The stormwater, I agree also. The construction would be a real problem. It would be a problem for us. That's why we came and said, if we're going to do fixes down there or something that's a phased-in plan, and we can do a little bit this year and a little bit next year and have a 10-year plan, and meet it out, we need engineering to devise that plan, because we're taking it as far as we can, as I said, except on the as-needed Band-Aids, coat hangers, type repair, whatever that we can do when we need to. So that's sort of just additional background as to how this got to this point, and I just wanted to add that in as a point of information. Thank you for the compliments. I'll pass them on to the crew. That means a lot to them. There's a real problem down there, because we are still relying, I'm only talking about stormwater now, I'm not talking about the wastewater, but the stormwater system is relying basically on this blind ditch that everybody's heard about, which is over 100 years old, and in some places is a blind ditch, in others is a clay pipe, in others is a metal pipe, in others it's patchwork. You can have 6 inches of flow go into 4 inches of flow, into 10 inches of flow, into 6 inches of flow. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. So, I mean, the system that's down there, it's not a question of will it fail. It's really a question of when will it fail, because it will. It's been failing. It fails. That's why we're doing the repairs that we're doing. So there's a lot to think about with that, because how do you address one without the other? Not easy questions. Very, very, very complicated issue. And I just wanted to add that into the discussion. Thank you. Not that it helped.
Realities of whatever.
So we will wrestle with it and decide whether we hope it's the next board's problem, not our problem, but maybe it's our problem.
Kick the can down the
So
road.
I think it's very useful that your presentation be put in writing, and I'm sure there'll be many more discussions about it.
Can I just add, if there was a public hearing that you guys scheduled for input, we could pretty much pack this place full of people with lots of experience on this matter and who share our position.
Let me suggest that to the
It's just
supervisor.
difficult when we don't know, at the end of a meeting, if it's going to be 3 people here, or whether it's going to be
Sure.
just back and forth discussion, or whether you guys would just sit back and say, okay, we listened to you. So we don't want to draw people to meetings that we don't find are productive, but we have a large network of people.
I will suggest that to the supervisor.
You guys ready for brief announcements from the county legislature?
Only if it's brief.
All right. I'll be brief. Tomorrow evening at 5:30 p.m. here, courtesy of Rhinebeck's own Fred Nagel, we're hosting a screening of a movie called Take Back Your Power. It's about smart meters. The website is takebackyourpower.net. The documentarian's name is Josh Del Sol. It's already won awards, just came out last year. I got a resolution passed unanimously in January in the Dutchess County Legislature pushing for state legislation for an opt-out so homeowners don't have to have these quote-unquote smart meters. The only problem is the resolution I got passed unanimously in the Dutchess County Legislature was not as strong as the resolution that got passed in December in the Ulster County Legislature. And that resolution said if anything is going to pass in Albany, it should include ERTs, encoding receiver transmitters, which Central Hudson has installed about 120,000 of them all over. This movie will blow your mind, trust me. If anybody here is free, anybody watching at home, you need to be here tomorrow, 5:30 p.m., right here at Rhinebeck Town Hall. Take Back Your Power. The county home fuel tax. There are an incredible amount of people in Rhinebeck and Clinton and all over Dutchess County that are livid, would not be an understatement. Now, I never voted for it. I've been trying to lead the fight against it since I ever heard about it, October, November. I still get calls and emails complaining about it. People are livid that the oil delivery companies are charging the Dutchess County home fuel tax, even if they made a prepaid agreement from last year. And there's a form you can apply for through the county executive's office, the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. Basically has made it clear, basically you're still screwed, but you can apply for some sort of rebuttal on that. But I'm just letting you know that it's very unusual for 50 people in one weekend to sign on to an online petition. One of your town board members, Mr. Schur, signed on. Deirdre Burns, head of the Rhinebeck School Board until June, she signed on. It's a petition that does not only say we need to repeal the county home fuel tax. It says there's a whole bunch of other ways to find millions of dollars in revenue, dealing with the money pit that's the county jail, the county incinerator, the failure to put solar on the county buildings, the pay to play, what's going on with the Dutchess County IDA and IBM on down the line. So that's it. And I'm doing a forum because I've done a lot of forums about this. I'm doing another one. That's going to be Tuesday, April 15th, here in this room. At 5:30 p.m. So people can come and complain to me, and we can help generate some ideas and some political will to build up some alternative sources of revenue to this county home fuel tax. I put together a resolution. Why can't the county legislature itself host forums on this around the county? As well, this June, the Dutchess County incinerator contract with Covanta runs out, and I'm also pushing for forums on that. The only other thing I was going to mention is because of that county incinerator contract running out, Wednesday, April 9th, 5:30 p.m. at Vassar College, Neil Selman, who's the president of the Institute for Local Self-Reliance out of Washington, D.C., he's going to be Skyping into a zero waste update forum that I'm hosting at Vassar College, Rockefeller Hall, room 200. Shabazz Jackson, he's been in this room talking to you guys. He is a local zero waste expert. He's going to be speaking. There are 200 communities all across the country that do curbside collection of organic waste. There's no reason why we can't make something like that happen here. Again, if you didn't know, Baptist Home here in Rhinebeck, the hospital, different folks from the school district and the fairgrounds have indicated to me off and on over the last decade they might be willing to do some composting, some mulching of the collection of the food waste. And half of the waste stream is food waste, and the incinerator doesn't even want it. The folks at the incinerator don't even want food waste, the food scraps, because it's 70-80% water. So that's it. I'm at 453-2105, 876-2488. And call me. I'll get you a hard copy, or I'll email you that online petition. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Having heard no other business, unless somebody has
Joe,
something.
I just have one more very brief thing that I wanted to mention. At the last board meeting, we talked about the heating replacement, and I wanted to let you all know that I have been in touch with Bobby. He's given me the estimates of what it would cost to repair the heat. Our office, our Director of Government Affairs, is currently looking for grants. I've also reached out to Kevin Cahill's office. I have a meeting set up with them for Wednesday, and tomorrow I have a meeting set up with our federal representatives to see what kind of help they might be able to find for us. So I
That's
just
great
wanted to
if
let everybody
you
know.
can shake some money loose.
I'm going to try like heck.
Okay, that would make you heroine of the month if you did that. Hearing nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And these are.
Okay. Welcome, pleasure.
Bruce, you poor thing. I heard your.
Barrel of worms.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Turn these
I understand.
Yeah, but you understand the history of the house.
Yeah. My parents still live there. I mean, they have all that history too, so, and I feel the same way, but I mean, if taxes go up that much,
But at
that's like a
some
serious.
point,
We're already
I'm
squeezed to the
sharpening
core,
my
you know,
knife
there's
and
nothing left to
fork,
squeeze out.